Welcome, my beautiful holy brothers, to A Course in Miracles. That's saying just a talk, just a sharing, just to lift us up, to lift us out of the false mind, the mind that is completely false and full of lies, and into the love, the experience of love, light, and peace. But we have to go through a whole process of forgiveness and undoing to get to that. We've got to let go gradually of this egoic mind. And today's talks are going to be based around lesson 47. God is the strength in which I trust. So we're going to be building on those ideas today by bringing in a few other little bits of, I'm going to be taking a little bit from Disappearance of the Universe, some other bits, but it's just purely given to me what to say. So the character of Kate couldn't come up with this, right? Because literally the character called Kate, it's actually not a thing. It's a set of beliefs that is spoken through seemingly a body, and it looks like there's a person, but there's no person. So the person is like, comes from the word persona, which is mask. So it's like, you know, when you meet someone for the first time and you see an image, you don't know anything. So really what you're saying when you speak to someone and you communicate to someone else as an ego, they're just going to tell you their beliefs. They're just going to tell you what they believe in. That's all they're going to do, is they're just going to tell you the contents of their mind. That's all they're going to do, the contents of generally their ego mind. So I'm going to say some stuff and it may not make sense, but this is what I came to see right at the end. Was all that stuff, it is the ego mind, and it's a self-concept. But the self-concept is just thoughts and beliefs. So that was sort of like, there was sort of these final seeings of things. It was sort of final like illumination into my mind about certain aspects. But prior to that illumination, I was stuck. I was thinking I was a person. I was doing lots of forgiveness for many, many years. So there is a moment when it's like the veil drops away, and that veil is the ego thought system. So the thoughts come forward to tell us about the world and ourselves. The thoughts push forward, talk about ourselves and the world. And when those thoughts stop, there's just peace. And what comes forward is seeing God in everything and just seeing love, seeing everything as love. Outside and inside are joined in the final seeing. And then there's sort of like other illuminations as well. You know yourself as God created you. But that's not the topic of the talk today. But I'm glad I said that anyway, because I really like to get that little message through, because it might help you understand sort of what happens at the end. So you lose that fear of awakening, because awakening is just having no fear thoughts and no thoughts, what I call self-referencing thoughts. No self-referencing thoughts, which is comparison thoughts. You know, the ego always compares. So we only have two thought systems, the ego and the Holy Spirit. That's it. We don't have private thoughts. We don't have Kate's thoughts or Karen's thoughts or Julia's thoughts. There's no thought that you could have that I wouldn't have. We all have the same thought system. It's like we're all drinking from the same jug of water. We're all having the same water. You don't have your own jug, or here's my Kate thoughts and these are all about me. Once you get that step, that everybody has the same thoughts. We're all got the same thoughts. People can act, this is that the ego says, it says, oh, this person's different. They've got different beliefs, they've got different thoughts. No, it's all the same. If you really look, you'll see we all have the same thoughts, the same ego thoughts. Then when we come to the Holy Spirit's thoughts, the Holy Spirit is the corrector. It's like the guide, the comforter in our mind. And so for a long period of time, the ego is going to be in our mind and the Holy Spirit is going to correct it. But he won't correct it unless we ask. So our part is to notice that we're upset, notice we're in the ego, invite the Holy Spirit in and ask for correction. And it might be that you just apply the daily lesson or apply something that's coming into your awareness right now. It doesn't matter how you do it. It's just that you do something to change that. And if you can think that there's no private thoughts, we don't have a private thought system. We're all thinking with this ego, and the ego thought system says I'm a body, and the mind looks at the image and says, yes, this is me, but this is the whole illusion. We've never been a body. We've never had a thought outside God. So we've got to go back from so I start off, all our attention is on outside of us. And so the spiritual journey is going within. So we're always turning within. So every lesson of the course is getting us to turn within, looking at the outside, trying to take our attention from outside of us and get us to turn within. And the more we do that, the more we spend time going within, even if it's difficult, it starts to become a habit, a practice. So the Course in Miracles is like you're taking a course, like a child or a teenager taking a university course. You don't know the course. You haven't graduated, so you come as a student. You don't try to know. He really wants us to be like babies, just to say, I know nothing. So I turn up at the university, my first day at school, most students would just turn up and say, I know nothing. But he doesn't want us to bring any of our past learning with us. He wants us to come with not with an empty mind, because we're imbued with the ego mind. We're in bed with the ego, right? We're stuck. We've got no awareness of another mind in our mind. It's a split mind, but we're not aware that it's split. And we've got no awareness that what we're looking at is like an illusion. It's an illusion of a world. It has no reality. And it's coming from another part of our mind that's in our unconscious that we're not aware of. But we have to take responsibility for it. We have to think about this. We have to really contemplate these teachings. Where am I? Why am I here? And what's the purpose of this world? And if you can really contemplate that, you can get to, well, there doesn't seem to be any purpose for it, does it? Because if we really attach to this world and attach to our body and our lives, all we do is seem to come in as a baby, get born into it, live, suffer, and then die. Now, is that what we want? So now we're here about a changeless dwelling place in our mind. So all the course is taking us back to our mind. And this is where it doesn't matter which spirituality you study, it's all about looking within. So you just turn the whole spotlight around. So if you want to be free, okay, so that's okay. So if you want to be free, put this, turn within, just spend as much time as you can, dedicate time for silence and quietness, or, throughout the day. So you have time for that quietness. If you're at work, go and make sure you have your lunch break and dedicate it to sitting, repeating a lesson, maybe read the lesson. They're all on devices now. You can listen to the lesson read out on many things. Really imbue yourself in this teaching. really try to get lots and lots of reminders throughout the day and do what you can. This is what Jesus says, you know, he knows we've got different things going on, but he just wants us to start to let these teachings take hold like little seeds in our mind, and then they grow and flower. And in the end, we have the flower garden. We've let loose, we've easily let go of the world of seeking for love or happiness or satisfaction or peace in an illusion, right? And come to know our true self. We come back to God. So today the talk is going to be God is the strength in which I trust, because the only place that we can fully have an experience of peace and trust and love and really fully immerse ourselves into this beautiful, holy, changeless dwelling place is God within us. And God is not a person, God is a word for a vast, infinite, changeless love, a changeless love that has no form, that is within us. And that's in us, that's in our mind. But even though we say it's in our mind, there's no where the mind is. We can't find the mind because the mind is formless as well. So we're going, the mind's not in the brain or in the head. The mind is within. So the thoughts are in our part of our egoic mind. Thoughts are not in our brain, they're in our mind. That love that we're all going home to and remembering, which we never left, but we've just forgotten. So we're going home to that. So to get back to that, we have to give up the values of this little tiny thing that we find ourselves in and we're relying on, and slowly we seem to rely on for our happiness and peace. But as he says, everything turns to dust here. You know, our partners, they seem to be alive and in a body, and then the next thing they're dead and in the ground, turning to dust. And Jesus says, you know, no one's alive here, but there is an aliveness still is in our mind. So this is a radical teaching. It is a really radical teaching. And my dedication to start off was never to distort this teaching, ever. It was to really, you know, I had to embrace it for myself, because I just said, if this teaching takes us to peace and happiness and this feeling of love, then I need to embrace it all. I can't take out part of the alphabet and have something. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. If you take a piece out, it doesn't work. You don't get the whole picture. So we have to embrace that this world is a hallucination, an illusion. Our body is an illusion. Even me speaking now and moving my hands on a screen, the computer's an illusion. Everything is an illusion. But in the illusion, the only part is that this teaching that's coming through can awaken us to the truth. Otherwise, we stay stuck in a dream. So then what we're going to end up in is a happy dream. We're going to be in the world, but not of it. We're going to know that it's like, once you know yourself as spirit, and that you know that who you are can't die, then you're not associating with this little bit of skin and bone and meat. You know, it's like the body is just some stuff. It's not me. And when the body gets laid aside, when we are going to go, so the Holy Spirit's going to direct us when our time is up. He's going to say, your job's done, Kate. You've done what I've guided you to do in this lifetime. because he's in charge. And he's going to say, right, step aside, let your body go. Now, how that happens, I don't know. But we're all going to come to that. So we repurpose our lives and our body and all our abilities. They all get repurposed for his purposes, his holy message in whatever way it happens. And we're all going to play our own little part. But when we're playing our part here, it's really, I'm going to do some talks, one talk or maybe a couple on healing. But just to touch on it, is that healing is seeing your brother as sinless. You're not interested in how the body looks. You're not even aware of a body. It's like you've got an awareness of a body, but your mind, because the ego's constantly comparing bodies and different things that bodies do. But when the ego's out of the picture, that all stops. That's one thing I noticed. There was just no comparisons going on. It was so quiet. My mind was just so quiet. It was really noticeable at the start, then I got used to it, so it's nice. And if you want to, you can just look at me. I mean, I'm just living what we call a normal life, but it's completely different to me. It's the happy dream. I do gardening and shopping and cooking. I've been to see my mum this weekend. I help look after my dad that lives close by. I've got 2 children that live about half an hour from me. I visit them when I can. Now lockdown's finished. I got to see my son, my daughter-in-law and my 2 grandchildren a week ago. And so I abide by whatever the rules are in anywhere, anytime, anywhere, because to not abide by them is that's what that would be the ego, right? The ego wants to defend against things. So you be normal unless you were guided to do something differently. That's why you can't ever say 100% something is what it is. But my guidance is just to do what's normally to do, and just to demonstrate, because it's really important. It feels like the Holy Spirit says, my whole life is the demonstration of a normal, middle-aged mother, grandmother, wife, so that everyone can see the demonstration of it, that it's normal. It's so normal to be happy and peaceful. It's the most natural way to be. To be in the ego mind is the most unnatural way. To be upset and to be depressed or anxious is it's just not normal. And we know it's not. Somewhere in our mind, we know that. So that's what I'm showing up in this lifetime, dedicated to in this lifetime, is to share these teachings, to show you that I've gone right through the course. I've had the change of mind, a shift of perception. It happened in January 2015. And since then, it's just been so beautiful to live with this inner guide guiding me all the time, what to do, what to say and when, like you don't even have to say that teaching. You just get up and in the morning you wake up and you just know that something's going to come forward. You see, we've only got the ego or the Holy Spirit. So if the ego is out of the picture, the ego doesn't, when you awaken, or it's really the ego drops away. There's just no comparisons. There's no guilt. There's no suffering because there's no guilt. Because I've done all those practices, all those Christ blessings. I did many times that beautiful blessing everyone. And it really takes, as you see your brother, your mind's going to live in that. How you see your brother is the state that you live in. It's like, if you want to live in a place of happiness, see the beauty everywhere, see the Christ, see the innocence, see the truth. So, that's such a big key. That was such a big key for my teaching. for how the Holy Spirit taught me. So I share in my talks things that helped me. I never say it was easy. It wasn't. It was difficult. It was really difficult at times. So I don't gloss over it. But I really had a strong dedication to trusting, and I couldn't trust all the time. Sometimes I couldn't even hear the Holy Spirit. I was so full of fear. So it's a wobbly journey, right? You're up and down all the time. You're flip-flopping. It happens to everyone. But all you need to do is just keep on going. Just wake up in the morning and say, right, there's another day. I'll just practice the course, do my lesson, read a little bit, just try to put the Holy Spirit in charge. Even if the next minute you're with the ego, you've put the Holy Spirit in charge and you're getting used to doing that. We all have a different, unique way of coming to be free. So everybody's journey is going to look different. You're going to use different books, different teachers, different parts of the course. So let go of needing anyone to understand what you're doing. You don't have to worry about that. It's all a little bit different. Some use Jesus more, some use the Holy Spirit more. It doesn't matter. It's what gets you. Some use angels, some use something else, some other spiritual teacher. As in, some inner guide. We have to just take ownership of our journey. This is what works for me. If something works for you, use it. It's given to you by the Holy Spirit for you to use. If someone says, even if I say something in any of these talks and it doesn't feel right for you, don't force yourself. Just let it go. Use what's right for you. So the Holy Spirit knows what you need and how you need it and what you need and when. He is the ultimate therapist. As we come together in these groups, something might be helpful, maybe not. Maybe you've got to say, hey, I'm sick of that group, I'm turning off. I just want to go within and spend a month inward with just the Holy Spirit. That's fine. You just follow your inner guide, trumps everything. You don't think you have to stay anywhere, doing anything in any group or any relationship anywhere. He's going to work with our mind, helping us. So I really like to say that, because you have to let go of these ego rules of that. If I start something, I've got to stay. Sometimes you might just go somewhere and all you need is one session with that person, or read 2 pages of a book you bought and that's all you need. You don't have to read the whole book. We have to let go of all these ego rules around the way we're going to come to remember our true self. So it's really helpful to hear that, because it's like frees you. It really, this was part of my journey, because I came across a lot of course students that were doing many different things to me. And at the start, I tried to let go of the things I was doing and think, well, they know better than me. And then it was like, had this inner guide, no, this is what you're here to do. And this is how I'm teaching you. And I said, okay, well, this is what I have to do then. So we each have to take responsibility for what's coming up for us and go to the Holy Spirit and have the truth come into our mind. And eventually forgiveness will be instant, and eventually there'll be no forgiveness needed, because coming to know God, coming to live in God's mind, is just coming to an experience of inner peace and joy. That's it. It's just living, but it's full of life, because what is peace and joy? It's life, right? It's living. So heaven and hell are not anywhere else. They're here right now. So heaven is the experience of perfect oneness, because everything's one. Why is it one? Because it's all God. So God is and there's nothing else. So that's how oneness works. It's not like you're going to look and a tree is going to merge into the leaf. The eyes see the tree, the branch, the leaf, but the mind knows everything as God. It's just everything is like a big soup of love. It's just this beautiful love. And it's not a world of separate things anymore. It's oneness. And that's like an experience that you have in your mind. It's like an understanding or revelation or illumination in your mind. And then the song of heaven comes in. Right? That's the most beautiful part, when you get to the song. And that's when you know that, like, everyone's in the song. We're all singing together to God. There's no one that's ever been a body, and you're just all singing to God and God singing to us, and we're in the one song, and it's just so beautiful. It's just so glorious. And you know when you get there that this world could never be. And then here you come back, because I was just in the song there and I've come back right. And I know that that song is always there. It's where I am. But here I am saying something, and I'm going to be going through these things today. And we just have to work with where we're at. But we have to work with where we're at. But we also have to hear the whole truth about where we really are. And it's all happening within our mind. It's not about going anywhere. It's all going within. So God is the strength in which I trust. It's so beautiful, because in this teaching, which I'll just read a little of now, God is the strength in which I trust. And here in this lesson, we're going to learn how to be free. And he points the way to us. Now, it's not always easy to do this, but we're in the course. We're taking, imagine going into a university lecture hall, you're sitting down and Jesus is up the front and he's reading us this lesson. And each day we wake up in our beds, we might read the lesson while we're sitting in bed or having breakfast. And we're in our course, we're in our classroom, and he's telling us this lesson. So here we are today, lesson 47 or day 47 of our classroom. And then he says to us, if you are trusting in your own strength, you have every reason to be apprehensive, anxious, and fearful. How can you predict or control? What is there in you that can be counted on? What would give you the ability to be aware of all the facets of every problem and to resolve them in such a way that only good can come of it? What is there in you that gives you the recognition of the right solution and the guarantee that it will be accomplished? So we can start to feel that when we trust in ourself, which is our ego self, when we're trying to make something happen, when we're trying to solve something, when we think this thing needs to happen like this, and then you get an attachment to it, we get caught up and he says that when we do this, we feel apprehensive, anxious, and fearful, because we've attached to an outcome and we're trying to control the situation because we think we know the best interest, our best interest, someone else's, something for the world, something for us. It's always sort of outside us that we think these problems are. Of yourself, you can do none of these. To believe that you can is to put your trust where trust is unwarranted, and to justify fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. Boy, I could really relate to that when I was going through the course. I had so much fear, anxiety, depression, anger, and sorrow. I had all of those in bucket loads. So I really had to let go of trying to solve what I thought were problems myself. Who can put his faith in weakness and feel safe? And who can put his faith in strength and feel weak? So now we're going to as we go through the course, we're going to change our way of, we're used to trusting in our own strength in terms of, and we don't even realise that we're trusting in the ego, right? But one thing I contemplated for a while was how nothing ever seemed to work out for me in the way I wanted it to. And then I started to realise that I had a very limited way of trying to work problems out. And Jesus says we're always relying on the past, right? So I thought, how would I know how anything's meant to go? And what we're going to learn through this lesson is there is a way for things to work out that benefit everybody. But if we're trying to use our past and our tiny limited experience to get something worked out, we can't see all the ways a particular thing might benefit us. And in a way, it's really after you've trusted, actually activated this trust and seen how something works out, that you realise how good it is trusting, how you could never in your wildest dreams seen how things would work out when you trust in God's voice, the Holy Spirit. God is your safety in every circumstance. His voice speaks for him in all situations, in every aspect of all situations, telling you exactly what to do to call upon his strength and his protection. There are no exceptions because God has no exceptions, and the voice which speaks for him thinks as he does. So we're going to call upon his strength. So even if you feel you have a situation or a problem and you think, what would be the best decision here? You can ask for, I really need your strength today. Help me. Give me your strength so that I can feel this trust as I let go of wanting to try to solve this, thinking I know how to do it, thinking I know what needs to get done and how it needs to work out. So we have to start to let go of an outcome and let go of the process and even let go of all thoughts that think we know anything about how something's going to work out. So we have to trust the whole thing to the inner voice to guide us and sit and trust. And if nothing's coming in, you're not meant to do anything. If your mind's quiet and you're trusting and you're not getting anything, and sometimes I would get the words not yet and just let it go. So we have to let go of the time it takes for something to work or whatever, however it is. So whether it'd be selling a house, leaving a partner, whatever it is in life, wherever it is, it's every little aspect of it. How it works is that if you just trust everything to him, and if you feel yourself coming to something and you say, oh, I can't trust that, this is the way to develop that trust. Because in the development of trust, he says that we keep some things aside. And I did too. I noticed there were certain things I didn't want to trust because I thought if I let them go, I'd be so fearful that it wouldn't work out how I thought it would work out. But we eventually, on our journey, we have to trust everything, every single thing. Where he says, hold on to nothing. Just a minute, I'm just going to have a drink. So we're just going to do say a 2-minute meditation now, just on this lesson, just to get you used to the words. So just for the next 2 minutes, let's just sit here and just repeat, God is the strength in which I trust. Just say it really slowly to yourself. So I hope you could really feel that maybe even just for a couple of seconds, you may have felt this deepening into this peace. And that's what he says towards the end of the lesson, about just really going into that peace. It is so easy when you trust the Holy Spirit, God's voice, to direct you. So there's sort of different parts of guidance, or the Holy Spirit's job. So the Holy Spirit is there to correct us, to bring in a change of perception. For me, Jesus was sort of that love. He was helpful as well, but I usually just called the Holy Spirit. But it doesn't matter what you call it. It's really what happens is your mind accepts that there is help. And once it accepts that there is help, it opens. And then something comes through. It's like turning on the tap, the water starts coming through. So there's something starts coming into your mind, and you've opened the door through this trusting and this voice. So the Holy Spirit's job is to remind us of the truth. So anytime we're upset, we can either apply the daily lesson to it, or ask for a word or a phrase, or to come in silence. Which means just sit quietly and something might come through. So there's part of the Holy Spirit's job is to correct our perception. And then another part is to guide us what to do, where to go and what to say. So the way my life is that I just say in the morning, just be in charge. Guide me. Even if I'm not consciously doing that, it's always activated. So it's sort of like a normal thing because I've done it for so long now. It's like a natural way to wake up and just feel this guidance coming through on where to go and what to do. And it might be something like put a load of washing in the clothes washing machine, or and while you do that, now go and wash your dishes, and you know, take the dogs for a walk now. It's like something in your mind takes charge of everything and it organizes it. Now, you might get guided, you know, you might normally walk the dogs at say 9 o'clock, and then you're guided to do other things. And at 10 o'clock, you're like, take the dogs for a walk now. That's why you can't really get into too much habitual stuff, because you've got to be open for something, always open, always following your guidance. And you might go for that walk at 10 a.m. rather than 9 a.m. And you might meet someone on that walk that when you say hello to them, you feel this guidance, stop and talk, just listen. So this is how we spend our life, in that we're really there to offer comfort, to offer our peace, to be the demonstration of it. He's going to he's going to be in our mind. It's like there's, you know, how the ego's always talking and comparing. This other guide is always with us, but it's a very gentle, kind voice. And, you know, God's voice speaks to me all throughout the day. So this is where we're going to be at, and it's very normal to have that. So, so now the next part I'm going to read is from chapter 30, and everyone knows I love rules for decision, right? And I'm going to start reading from paragraph 15 of the first section of this. Your day is not at random. It is set by what you choose to live it with, and how the friend whose counsel you have sought perceives your happiness. So our day is not at random. And the reason why it's not at random is that when you wake up in the morning, there's a few seconds where your mind is empty. And then generally, I know for myself, years ago, the ego would come in and start, you know, its fearful talk about, you know, if you don't get up now, you'll be late for work. You're always late. You're going to get in trouble. And you just get this. And then I don't want to go to work. I'm sick of it. I wish I could give it up. Tired of it. I don't like the people. So all those are ego thoughts having a conversation together. All the thoughts are conversations. There's no me in there. The me is the one witnessing the conversation. So when I'm like that, I'm just going to give some examples of my life so it might help you understand this teaching, is that how could I, so the minute I get imbued in those thoughts, I am anxious, I'm fearful, I'm annoyed, I'm irritated, and I'm even a bit depressed, right? So those thoughts bring me into an experience. So when I wake up in the morning, my day is not at random. It's always by which thoughts I listen to. So when I was doing forgiveness, I started to notice that the ego pretty much had the same story of doom and gloom every day. So I'd watch the thoughts, they'd come in, and I'd say, Holy Spirit, I give you all these thoughts, this whole, you know, kit and caboodle of rubbish that's in my mind now, trying to work out, should I go to work or shouldn't I? And I hate the job and maybe I should resign. This is all this trying to decide for myself. And one thing about the ego is it offers you various solutions. And then what it also says is none of them will work. So that's why there's anxiety, because you can look for yourself when you're in the ego and it's trying to give you 3 different scenarios. Oh, yeah, leave your job. Yeah, but then I won't have any money. And what if I don't get another job? Okay, well, stay. Yeah, but I hate it. And, you know, maybe if I don't get a job now, I might leave it too long. And one thing I noticed was I went round and round and round and round with the ego thoughts, and they never led to an outcome that worked. And even if I did leave my job, the ego would say, see, that job was so good. I don't know why you left it. No, the money was good. Now look where you are. And the ego always compares and judges, and it never brings peace and happiness. So the ego is seek and do not find. So if you're asking the ego for a solution to the current problem, you never, ever find peace and happiness. So, and there's no wiggle room here. It just doesn't work. That's why a lot of people that come to the course really surrendered, like nothing's working. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm sick of trying to climb the corporate ladder, find someone to love me, you know, all these ego stuff, not even realizing it's all ego. So my day is not at random. It's set by which thought system I choose to live with. So I can live the script of the ego. So those thoughts that come in, the ego thoughts that say, you know, the people at work are annoying, my boss is too strict, or she's, you know, whatever, just that story that's coming in. If I go down that rabbit hole with those thoughts, I'm going to be depressed, I'm going to be sad, I'm going to get in the car and drive to work and feel irritated. Then the ego is going to say you need to leave, and then no, you can't. And you feel enmeshed, you feel torn, you feel so anxious. You don't know what to do because there's no solution, right, that seems to work. And we do that over and over every day. So the script of the ego is to keep you embedded in problems so you never look within and come to the truth. That's what it says in Disappearance of the Universe. That's the whole trick. It keeps you searching in the world, and it just says, yes, but, and then it says, but you know what? What about trying this other job? I reckon if you change, what about going back to school and trying this and trying that? So it brings up this little solution. You go, yeah, that might work. That's good. And then it goes, yeah, but what about this? You may not have the money then. Oh, you know, and then maybe you don't really like that. So I'm really explaining what my thought system was, right? Because you have to know how everybody you see here is living in that crazy mixed up problems, trying to solve them. And he says you'll be anxious, depressed, sad. So my day is not at random. It's set by what I think with. So I wake up in the morning, the ego would speak first for a while. It's going to speak first for quite a long period of time until you're really, really aware of the ego, and you're going to end up doing instant forgiveness. And the thought's going to start coming in and it won't even finish. And you go, no, not interested. God, you're in charge. Holy Spirit, you're in charge. And you might repeat some of the lessons. God is the strength in which I trust. I'm going to trust God today. I'm going to trust the Holy Spirit to lead me. So you activate a different day. So you start to have a different day by activating the Holy Spirit in your mind. You always ask advice before you can decide on anything. So we've only got 2 thought systems that we ask advice from. The ego, who never works, but wants to give you, is really willing to give you lots of options and lots of solutions and lots of problems, right? I've shared this before. The Holy Spirit showed me many ways to look at the ego, and I've shared about these before, but one of them that's coming through now, it's like if you're driving along in the car and you're trying to get to a town, and say you don't have any device to help you or anything in your car, any GPS or anything, right? You're just driving along and you're trying to get somewhere. and you see a person standing by the side of the road, and you wind your window down and you say, do you know how to get to heaven? This is what we're saying to the ego, right? I want to get to happiness and peace. But we're saying, you know, I want to get to this particular town. And the ego's rubs its hand. Have you ever seen those people that always want to be helpful, but sometimes they don't know, but they're never going to say, hey, I've got no idea. They're never going to say that. So this sort of what ego showed me was like a bumbling fool. He says the ego's like a bumbling fool. It rubs its hands together in glee. Oh, Kate asked me again. Great. I know. So here we go. Right. What about this? And what about that? And what about this? But you know what? So it's like somebody saying, you know, you could go up there and turn right, but you know what? There's the other day, there was something across the road. They may not have taken that. So that may not work. And look, you could go up this road and you could turn down there and you could do this. But you know what? I think that's the long way, and don't know that it gets there. So the ego offers lots of problems, offers lots of solutions, and also very subtly says that all those solutions won't work. And that's why I did hours and hours trying to work out a solution to perceived problems. And when you come to this new answer, that if you join with the Holy Spirit, you will get the answer. And sometimes it is wait, right? So it's really important to remember that it may not come through straight away, and the answer may come through in very small steps. You might be just given, call this person, or nothing. Or you might, and then later on you might be going, go and sit down on the computer and look this up or something. You just have to trust with what's coming through, and it eventually leads you to something. When the Holy Spirit's in charge and is guiding us in all these different ways, it's going to be completely different to the past that you've relied on. So it's not going to look like anything you're used to. That's why it feels strange at the start to really, really practice this. So if we think of the script or our day, so the thoughts are the ego thoughts that come in, and if our day is not at random, because if we're living in the ego, we're going to be living in a day of some sort of suffering of some sort. And it's going to offer you little tidbits of happiness to keep you thinking that it knows. So remind yourself, when you're asking the ego for help for any problem, you're winding your window down and asking a bumbling fool that doesn't know how to get you to where you're going. So we have to really say, I'm going home to peace. I want the peace of God. That's what I want. And the ego can't get us there. So day-to-day issues, just the normal day-to-day things of your particular life, the Holy Spirit will work with you to help you. And that's what I did. I just had to give over these particular things about, tell me if I should stay at this job, tell me when to go. So he got me to stay in a job that I actually wanted to leave, because he says, you're going to learn these really good lessons here in this job. So stay. The minute you say, I want to have the peace of God, it can seem like a lot of things get not go wrong, but like there's an agitation coming up, because the ego is saying you need to leave, there's something better over here, right? And we've got to go against that and trust the inner voice that's maybe saying something else. Now, that Holy Spirit might say to us, look, you need to leave here and do that. So this is where this coming to really focus on the quiet, getting quiet in our minds and letting that hearing that inner voice that sounds really hard to hear at the start. But for me now, it's just so normal. It's clear. It's telling me all the time. It speaks, like he says, it speaks with authority and love. So our day is not at random. It's really good to hear that. You have the power to choose. The power of decision is mine, to listen to that ego or to turn to the Holy Spirit. That's the only power I have. And the more I turn to the inner guide, the quiet voice that will guide me, and it'll guide me what's in my best interest. And it's going to guide me on, it's going to show me, the Holy Spirit kept me in a job that I wanted to leave, but it was so beatific towards the end because I had some really big forgiveness opportunities there. You know, I've shared about what I call the bully at work. Well, there wasn't a bully at work. That was just a figment of my ego imagination, right? But I had to be there because I kept having bullies at work all the way along. And he said to me, this is just going to happen because you're putting the meaning on stuff and you have to work with me. I have to show you how to change your mind. And so I offered this particular classroom of this job in this to the Holy Spirit to show me that there could never be a bully. But I didn't pretend. The ego was shrieking, there is a bully, you need to leave, look at it. So that voice, the ego voice, gets louder. You know, Jesus says it shrieks. So yes, if you're hearing the ego shriek about something, that's what Jesus says happens, right? And it is tough. It's not easy, right? But that's why you have to develop that trust, that there's an inner guide that's going to show you when you go there. He's going to be in your mind and he's going to tell you how to look upon all those things using the Course's teachings and the inner guide and the inner love. So all these lessons that he's teaching us in the Course, he's going to bring to life in your personal experiences here, your relationships with everybody. And it's not easy because, as I said, the ego's got its little blah, blah, blah in. So it's like, you know, when you're asking for directions and then the Holy Spirit turns up at the other window and says, look, you know, you need to go down here and do this and just go directly home, right? That's what the Holy Spirit would say. The ego is going to argue. The ego is going to try to pull you back over and over again. And our job is to just keep noticing it. No, I'm not listening to that ego voice. I'm going to listen to the Holy Spirit's voice. So you always ask advice before you can decide on anything. So any decision we make, we're asking one voice or the other. Let this be understood, and you can see that can be no coercion here, nor grounds for opposition, that you may be free. There is no freedom from what must occur. And if you think there is, you must be wrong. So what he's saying here is your day is not at random. There is no freedom of what must occur. If you join the ego, you're going to have a certain type of day. That's why he says he's not taking away the decision-making part of our mind. He says, you want to join the ego. The only reason we're going to stop joining the ego is when we really see it doesn't work. And remember, he says in Obstacles to Peace that we're attracted to guilt. So we're attracted to the ego's guilt. So in all the thoughts that I might have had about going to work, those thoughts would be, yes, my boss is guilty of this. She's doing that. The other worker, she's a bully. She's guilty of this. So all those thoughts were about guilt, but none of them pointed out that they were coming from my belief in guilt about myself. And that was all revealed all along the way as I put him in charge, as I went into what I called like fearful going to work. He just used it as a classroom, and he'd say, look what she just said then. Can you see how fearful she is? Don't personalize anything. Nothing is personal because there's no person. There's only two thought systems. So if you can get that. So Jesus is telling us here, a day is not at random. You can have a happy day every day if you put the Holy Spirit in charge. You can do it. It is possible. But it does, at times, you're going to wander off into the ego. And so you'll end up, starting to join that judging, comparing, guilt, fear, trying to bring up problems, solve illusory
It takes
problems.
6 months. And she may.
That's just, I think someone new on the group has come in. I'm not sure. Anyway, so it doesn't take 6 months actually. So when we wake up in the morning, just think of every morning as a fresh day for you to remind yourself, my day is not at random. It's set by which voice I hear. So I'm going to be in the ego script. So if you think about, so if I woke up with the ego's thoughts and joined them and got upset, I'm in the script of the ego, and I'm going to drive to work all sad and depressed and annoyed and ready to attack, feel attacked. Right, I'm going to attack back, planning my attack, planning that I'm going to get attacked, And so I'm like a puppet. I'm a puppet to all those ego thoughts. My body is, and I'm all upset. I'm like a little character in a dream go, oh, I'm all upset now, oh, And so when we choose the Holy Spirit, I get up, I wake up, and for a long time I was like, okay, I'm going to this job. You be in charge. You show me. You teach me today. So it's activated into forgiveness. And now, if I go anywhere, there's no forgiveness needed to be activated because it's finished. My mind is clear. I know who everyone is. So that's sort of like the oneness. So we've got the wrong mind, the right mind, which is the activating of forgiveness, which we have to do for however long it takes until we get to the one mind. And then we still need to do forgiveness at times in terms of, I still need to, there's the ego, I still hear the ego occasionally. So I need to be really careful. And Jesus says the veil can come down again over your mind. Even when you're really clear, the ego can come down. So he says you have to be careful. So God is the strength in which I trust. I'm going to trust the Holy Spirit with my day. The second rule as well is but a fact. For you and your advisor, so the advisor is either the ego or the Holy Spirit. You must agree on what you want before it can occur. It is but this agreement that permits all things to happen. Nothing can be caused without some form of union, be it with a dream of judgment or the voice for God. Decisions cause results because they are not made in isolation. You can't make a decision on your own in terms of like a decision to have a drink of water is, it's not sort of good or bad, but he's talking about these decisions, about judgments, about, and you'll know what I mean, because he says in rules for decision, you don't have to ask on every little thing, but just the things that you know, like if you're going to meet someone or you're going to make a call or someone's coming to your house, that you know that you've got a lot of ego judgment around. So put him in charge and say, you be in charge, and really prepare yourself. You really come to, you know, God is the strength in which I trust. Like God's voice is the strength in which I trust. His guidance is in which I trust. His love is in which I trust. And the decisions you make, these decisions in our so-called life, these are the ones that are going to, if we decide with the ego, we're going to have anxiety and being upset. And so I really like this part of rules for decision, because there's no wiggle room, and it ties in with that responsibility for sight, because your day is not at random, and responsibility says for sight says everything that happens to you ask for. So what he means is that we're attracted to the ego and we don't trust the Holy Spirit. So we have to develop that trust. So how you develop trust is you have to trust first and then see how it works out. You can't see how the Holy Spirit works in your mind unless you trust first. So you have to put yourself out on a limb many times and say, I'm letting go of trying to direct this or control this situation or this relationship with this person, because the ego has always got, the ego is always impatient for something to happen. It never has patience, where Jesus says infinite patience brings immediate results, which is the immediate peace I get when I have the patience of trusting in the Holy Spirit to take care of this, how it's meant to be. And he says, stay in the I don't know mind. So we've just got to sit back, and as soon as the ego says, oh, this isn't working out, you know, you've got to do something. No, I don't know. I'm trusting. No, I'm trusting. No, I'm trusting. Over and over, we've got to do this. So that's that part. How we're going for time. So now I'm going to go into the meditation, but I'm going to read something first. It'll take me a few minutes to read this, and I'm hoping all these tie together so that you can get a deeper understanding of how this works. And all I can say is when I started trusting, what I noticed was things got sorted out in ways that I would never have seen, and it was always so much better than what I would have had I've tried to plan from the past. So opening up into this I don't know mind is strength in defenselessness. And remember, that's really part of it as well, is that I don't know, I'm trusting, I'm not forcing, and I'm not saying, oh, the Holy Spirit didn't sort it out today, so I've got to rush in and do something. And you may even have people say to you, oh no, you need to get this and you need to get that. No, you just got an inner trust and patience in yourself to just, you don't have to say I'm trusting the Holy Spirit. You can just say it's okay, I've got it sorted. So you can come to trust. So this is part of The Disappearance of the Universe, and it's page 350. Just going to close my window. I don't know whether you could hear that. There was someone using their little, what we call a whippersnipper. So this is page 350 from True Prayer and Abundance. And this is Arten talking. Look at it this way. If the illusory universe is in perpetual change and God is changeless and eternal, which would you rather have as your source? your problem of scarcity, which is symbolic of the thought of separation, is amplified by the fact that you are putting your faith in something that can't be counted on. If you see your source of supply as being something in this world, for example, your career, a specific job, or your own abilities, then when something changes, as it always does in this world, you could be out in the cold, an illusory source can be lost. What if your source cannot change or fail? Then you're putting your faith where faith is justified. Now you can see your transitory careers and endeavours as simple tools that can be used as symbolic expressions of your constant supply. Now your source becomes a bottomless well where you can go for guidance that will always come in some form of inspiration. If your tool happens to break, so what? So you don't have to be attached to it because it's not your source. If your source is constant, then one tool can be easily and quickly replaced by another one through the very natural occurrence of inspiration. You can relax knowing that you can't lose your source, God. Gary says, I've already experienced some of what you're talking about, but could you be a little more specific about what it looks like? Persa, yes. Jesus' instructions in the Song of Prayer is quite specific, but joining with God is abstract. Later on, usually when you don't expect it, an answer to your problems will come to you out of the blue, if you will, as an after effect of joining with God. I'll repeat for you, because you've already read it, part of what this gem of a pamphlet says. So this is part of the Song of Prayer. The secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. To ask for the specific is much the same as to look on sin and then forgive it. Also, in the same way, in prayer, you overlook your specific needs as you see them and let them go into God's hands. There, they become your gifts to Him, for they tell Him that you would have no gods before Him and no love but His. Now I'm going to read on, and what I'm going to read is the meditation, but I'm going to read about the meditation. I'm going to read past the meditation, and then I'm going to go back and we'll do the meditation together. So just listen to the instructions and then we'll go back and do it together. As one example, when you meditate, you might visualize yourself taking Jesus or Holy Spirit's hand and going to God. Then you might think of yourself as laying your problems and goals and idols on the altar before Him as gifts. Maybe you'll tell God how much you love Him and how grateful you are to be completely taken care by Him, forever safe and totally provided for. Then you become silent. You have the attitude that God created you to be just like Him and to be with Him forever. Now you can let go of everything, join with God's love and lose yourself in joyful communion with Him. A couple of days later, you might be eating a sandwich or working on the computer, and all of a sudden it hits you. An inspired idea just comes to you. The word inspired, as you know, means in spirit. By joining with Spirit, you've been given the answer. People are always looking for God to answer their prayers. If they knew more about how to pray, then they'd know how the answer is given. His answers don't come in the form of physical answers. They come to your mind in the form of guidance, an inspired idea, which the pamphlet describes as an echo of God's love. And this is again from the Song of Prayer. The form of the answer is given by God will suit your need as you see it. This is merely an echo of the reply of his voice. The real sound is always a song of thanksgiving and of love. That's the key, joining with God in love and gratitude. You forget everything else and get lost in his love. That's what it is to be filled with the Spirit. That's the Song of Prayer. So let's go back and do that meditation together now. I'll read it through again. So you get an idea. But I tried this. Now, Gary Renard has a 5-minute meditation on YouTube. I think it's just called True Abundance. If you want to do this with Gary, and he takes you through, this is the meditation sort of taken from this section. I did that. I listened to his meditation for many, many times, and I did get a lot of inspired ideas. It started those ideas, and now that I'm living in the inspired ideas, right? Because there's a way to live in that. You live in guidance, you live in inspired ideas. So, you know, these groups was an inspired idea. So the group was an inspired idea, and then the topics and what comes through is an inspired idea. I don't decide anything. I'm just like a blank canvas that comes through. Hey, you know, I opened the book, and I opened Disappearance of the Universe, and I opened it at another section, and I was reading it, and it didn't feel quite right. And I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, I saw I had this little pink, I don't even know when I've put that pink sticky note there, right? And I just looked at it, and it caught my attention, and I opened it, and this is where the reading's from today, right? And this was this morning. So, and I read it, and I thought, oh, it all ties in with today's talk. So you start to see it's, you know, we're living in this inspired ideas. And, you know, I was guided to pick up Disappearance of the Universe this morning, and then he even guided it. And I don't know when I've put that there, but I must have at some stage. And then today it's for this group. So let's go into this meditation, and I'll just speak it out to you if you like. So we'll have, I have about 10 minutes or so after I've finished speaking. So we want to just sit quietly, get comfortable, relax, and take a few deep breaths. Now I want you to visualize taking Jesus or the Holy Spirit's hand. You don't have to take the physical hand, you can just feel their presence. Just feel. Then think of yourself as laying all your problems on an altar. Just imagine a big altar in front of you. Just put the problems there. If you're having difficulty in a relationship, just think of the problem with that person, and then put the person on the altar as well. Just sort of so the problem goes with them. So think of all the people that you're having difficulty with at the moment, and just see, and just put it on there and let it go. Feel like there's something releasing as you put it on the altar. Any problem that you're having that you think is a problem, just let it go, put it on the altar. Any goals you have, anything you think you need to achieve or get, do you feel attached to some goal? Just put that on the altar and let it go. Any idols, anything you idolize, You might idolise a romantic relationship, or even idolising teachers, or even awakening as an idol. You know, we've got to let that go. Anything that you feel is anything that's troubling you, let's just put it all on there. And then put yourself on the altar. Just let yourself go, your life. Put yourself, just rest there. Or you might feel this really, really deep rest as you do that. And we're going to tell God how much we love him and how grateful we are. I'm just going to do that in a really so all we're going to do is we're just going to get this feeling of gratitude. If you can really feel this really deep gratitude, and just offer it up. And now we're going to become silent for 10 minutes. Okay. You'll just bring your awareness back. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Thank you to everyone that didn't get to say hello to and embrace with the love of God. So we join in that Christ mind, in that love. So I hope you, even if you get a touch of it in these meditations or during the talks, it's beautiful to just get that glimpse, that holy instant, that little glimpse of love, or maybe you had a whole experience of it then. This is why we practice these meditations, so we get used to really going into that beautiful, letting go. So I noticed in that meditation, it was very similar to, the last couple of weeks we've been letting go. So I'm so glad that I was guided to that today, this morning, before I came on. So let's unmute our microphones now and just do this blessing. Whatever words you feel, just speak out to the group. It's just beautiful to feel everyone's voice joining together in just this beautiful. Jesus says your only response to your brother is appreciation. So really, our only response to everyone is just thank you. I appreciate you. Right? So that's just such a lovely teaching in itself. So you can just say thank you to everyone that turned up, to each other. And, you can add in, I love you and I bless you, or whatever words. So just speak it out now if you like. Just unmute yourselves. Share the love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Love you.
Love you.
Thank you. I love you. I bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you. Bless you.
I love
Bless
you.
you.
Bless you all.
Bless you.
Thank you. I love you.
I love you.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Kate.
you, Kate. Thanks, everybody, for showing up.
Thank you.
Always wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.